What's up, everyone? So today I want to go over the progressing your conditioning part 2, which will be covering the intensity portion. Increasing intensity is a very simple variable which we can progress our conditioning. All we have to do essentially is work harder. And if we work harder over a period of time and we do it smart, essentially we're automatically going to become better conditioned. What subcategories of intensity can be modified in order to progress our conditioning? So what subcategories of intensity can be modified in order to improve our conditioning? So the first two ways I want to go over how we can increase intensity is by using our heart rate. So the number one way is going to be simply to use a heart rate monitor. This gives you objective feedback. Clearly, if your heart rate one week is 150 and then your heart rate the next week is 155 and then 160, etc., you're going to be working at higher intensity levels, which again is one way of progressing our conditioning. So what happens if we don't have a heart rate monitor in order to give us this objective feedback? Well, in that case, I'm going to use RPE, or rate of perceived exertion, to give us subjective feedback. What kind of scale do I like to use? Generally, they have run specific ones, but I just use the same kind of 1 to 10 type thing. I essentially will disregard numbers under, say, 5 and under. Basically never going to be doing anything. I mean, 5 for, let's say, like on a running scale would be walking, and then 6 might be a slow jog, and then 10 would be a sprint, and then everything else is in between. So for things such as cardiac output, where we want to be working at a lower heart rate range, the RPE range of kind of 6 or 7 is really good. So we should be able to maintain a conversation at that rate. If we can't maintain a conversation, then that means that we're working at too high of an intensity level and we need to slow down. For sprint work, if we're trying to really get into working the anaerobic energy system, you need to be getting into RPE of 10, and then for various other things, you're going to be in between 9s, 8s, 7s. Generally, I like to keep a lot of the conditioning work in that, again, 7, 8, 9 range, with a little bit of 10 thrown in, and 6 for cardiac output. So let's give some quick and easy example. It's very intuitive for how to increase your heart rate, but let's just look at walking, jogging, and running. So clearly, when you walk, your heart rate is going to be very low and your intensity is going to be very low, and your RPE is also going to be very low. Now when you start jogging, your heart rate begins to elevate, your RPE is going to elevate, and your intensity elevates slightly, but obviously we're not at maximal yet. Now when you're going for a sprint and you're going at an absolute maximal sprint, generating as much power as possible for a short duration, now our heart rate is going to be very high, our RPE is going to be high, and our intensity is clearly as high as it can possibly go because we can't move any faster than we are. So when we want to increase intensity, we can look at either increasing the duration of the higher intensity work we're doing. Like I was saying earlier, let's say week 1 we're doing some sort of interval, and our goal is to get to a heart rate somewhere around 155, and then with our rest interval, let's say we're going down to 135. So we do that for week 1. We're going to just simply add intensity to this method. So the next week, maybe we want our max heart rate to go up from that 150 to 155. Week 3, 160. Week 4, 165. And again, this is just a very broad outline, but it just goes to show you how you can indeed improve your conditioning by increasing your intensity specifically over periods of time. And generally, with your heart rate, obviously you can't just keep increasing your heart rate for infinity. For obvious reasons, our heart rate just doesn't go past a certain limit. So once you approach that limit, you need to start coming up with other alternatives for using intensity to progress your conditioning. Another way to increase intensity is to do the same work in a shorter period of time. Let's say you're doing reps here. Let's say you're doing kettlebell swings. Maybe week 1, you're doing 10 seconds. Week 2, 10 seconds. Week 3, 10 seconds. Week 4, 10 seconds for your work interval, 10 to 20 seconds, let's say, okay? Week 1, maybe you do 15 reps. And so now we want to increase our intensity using the same timer interval. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to increase the amount of reps we're getting in that work interval and keep everything else, like our rest interval, around the same. So we're doing basically more work in the same amount of time. If we want to do more work in a shorter period of time, we're essentially going to decrease our work intervals. And again, this is most of the intensity-based stuff is going to be on intervals. So we can decrease the amount of time we're doing our intervals. So let's say week 1 we do 10 seconds, and we're going to work it down from that. Say 18 seconds, 16 seconds, 14 seconds. But let's say we're using kettlebell swings. We're going to try and keep the reps the exact same. So that means that you're going to have to be moving incredibly hard, which will in turn elevate your heart rate. So now you have a brief understanding of how you can use intensity to progress your conditioning. Again, it's an excellent method to use. Highly recommend it. Any type of periodized conditioning program should have you working at the beginning of the program using lower intensity, higher volume methods, and as the program proceeds, you should be lowering your volume slightly and increasing your intensity. Same kind of thing we would do for a 10 or 12 week lifting program. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please hit that like button. If you like this type of content, I got a lot more coming out. Hit that subscribe button below, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.